Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into some incredibly fascinating source material to unravel a topic that literally touches almost every single one of us. We're looking at the true, hidden costs of our collective smartphone obsession. Because look, we all know we spend a lot of time on our devices, but the real cost, it goes way, way beyond what we usually talk about.
Okay, let's dive straight into this. The central question we constantly hear in the media is exactly this. Are these glowing little rectangles actively destroying our brains? Are they making us anxious, depressed, totally unable to focus? But what if I told you that by fixating entirely on that one specific debate, we might be completely missing the point? What if we're just asking the wrong question entirely?
To really wrap our heads around this, we have to look at the sheer scale of the numbers. Today, an astonishing 4.3 billion people, that is 53% of the entire global population, own a smartphone. Think about how insanely fast that happened. In less than 20 years since Steve Jobs announced the first iPhone back in 2007, this technology reached near universal adoption at a speed unlike anything we've seen before, faster than running water, electricity, you name it. The creator of our source material actually recalls getting their very first smartphone, an HTC Desire, back in the summer of 2010 while working this lonely internship. And at that time, absolutely nobody had any idea just how fundamentally these devices were about to rewire human daily life.
And man, is that rewiring obvious when you look at our daily usage. Because at the exact same time these phones were spreading across the globe, some of the absolute brightest engineers of our generation packed their bags for Silicon Valley with one single mission: to get us to spend as much time as humanly possible staring at these screens. And through brilliant inventions like the like button, push notifications, and the infamous infinite scroll, they absolutely succeeded. Just look at these averages. 3.35 hours a day in Germany, 4.34 hours in the US, and a totally staggering 6 hours a day in Indonesia. We are spending massive chunks of our waking lives just looking down at our hands.
And because we're spending so much time glued to our screens, it's triggered this massive cultural alarm. It's incredibly telling that the Oxford English Dictionary recently named their word of the year, and it was brain rot. It's defined as the supposed deterioration of a person's mental state from over-consuming trivial online content. Society is clearly feeling a very deep sense of unease about what this technology is actually doing to us. Now, that unease has sparked a highly polarized debate among researchers. On one side, you've got experts sounding a massive alarm. Gloria Mark points to data showing our attention spans dropping from 150 seconds in 2003 to a mere 47 seconds in 2016. Meanwhile, Jonathan Haidt and Jean Twenge make these really compelling cases that this screen time is just devastating the mental health of younger generations. But on the flip side, you have researchers like Andrew Przalski and Amy Orban who point to studies suggesting that the direct connection between screen time and mental health issues is actually pretty overstated in the public discourse. They argue the data just isn't that clear-cut.
So who's right? Well, the truth is, this specific debate over health effects might not be resolved anytime soon. But here is the crucial paradigm shift we really need to make today. Even if all that screen time isn't directly causing a health crisis, it is indisputably incurring a massive, quantifiable cost. We need to talk about opportunity cost.
And this brilliantly illustrates what we mean. To ground this highly emotional debate in cold, hard economics, we can look all the way back to 1911, when Friedrich von Wieser coined this very term. Opportunity cost is the loss of potential gain from other alternatives when one alternative is chosen. Simply put, when you spend your resources, and in this case we're talking about your time, on one thing, you are inherently paying the absolute price of not doing the next best thing.
Let's bring this right into your living room. If you spend 1 hour sitting in a chair looking at your phone, the opportunity cost is the exact value of the best alternative thing you could have done with those 60 minutes. Maybe it's an hour finally baking that sourdough bread, an hour diving into a good book, or an hour grabbing coffee with a friend. And what makes this so critical is that the more we use our phones, the higher this opportunity cost gets. The value we get from scrolling decreases rapidly the longer we do it, meaning the cost of missing out on real life just gets higher and higher. Scale that up to billions of people using phones for 3 to 6 hours a day, and the global loss of human potential is literally almost impossible to comprehend.
The creator of our source material actually shared a deeply personal anecdote about realizing this exact cost. Back in 2018, they were living out their childhood dream working in Washington, D.C. But instead of out exploring museums or making new friends, they were spending nearly all their free time completely alone, doom scrolling. They hit rock bottom. Realizing they hadn't read a book for pleasure in 8 years, they decided to take some drastic action. Step 1.
Literally throw the smartphone under the bed. Step 2, walk out the door, buy an e-reader, and sit at a cafe. And step 3? Well, the domino effect of those first 2 steps ultimately led to a complete career change.
By simply putting the phone away, they reclaimed their time and started reading again. And the books they consumed during that reclaimed time were completely life-changing. Sapiens by Yuval Harari opened their mind to totally new ways of thinking. A Job to Love by the School of Life provided the tools to figure out their life's true purpose. And Range by David Epstein showed them that it's never too late to pivot. That reclaimed opportunity cost literally gave them the courage to leave a safe corporate law career and start making video essays.
It's an amazing turnaround, right? But the creator is the first to admit they still struggle with screen addiction today. And that brings us to a massive question. If the opportunity cost is really this high, and the benefits of logging off are so profound, can we actually do something systemically to make it easier for all of us to put down our phones? How do we actually solve this?
Now, what's really interesting here is how society currently views the solution, mostly through the lens of who we blame. On one side, we have people like Tristan Harris, famous for The Social Dilemma, who argue this is fundamentally a technology and regulation problem. The tech companies are using exploitative, addictive methods, and we need strict rules to stop them. On the other side, we have authors like Nir Eyal, who wrote Indistractable. He argues this is a personal responsibility problem. It's entirely up to the individual to build better habits and take control of their own time. So who's right? Well, it's probably a bit of both.
But this brings us to the third layer, a problem of societal norms. See, focusing only on tech regulation or personal willpower misses something really massive. The source material posits that excessive screen time is heavily driven by societal norms. Right now, almost anywhere you go, it's not just accepted that you'll be staring at your phone, it's actively expected. But societal norms aren't permanent, they shift. Just look at 1949. It was completely normal to see actual advertisements where doctors recommended Camel cigarettes. It was totally normal for nurses and doctors to smoke while working in hospitals. But over time, those norms shifted. First, it simply became socially inappropriate for doctors to smoke at work, and it wasn't until way after the cultural norm shifted that the laws caught up and made it officially illegal. We've seen similar shifts with things like inappropriate jokes in the workplace. Culture always moves first.
So how do we actually shift the cultural norm around smartphones? We lean into a concept called behavioral contagion. Social science proves that our actions are profoundly affected by the people around us. How much you drink, or whether you install solar panels on your roof, depends largely on what your neighbors and your friends are doing. The exact same rule applies to phones. If you're sitting on a train and you see someone put away their phone and pull out a book, you are significantly more likely to do the exact same thing. We are literally wired to mimic each other.
Now, taking personal responsibility for your own influence can take many different forms. For the creator of our source material, it meant making a really tough ethical choice regarding their business. Despite being told by everyone that chopping their videos into rapid-fire YouTube Shorts and TikToks would guarantee explosive channel growth, they refused. They realized, hey, if I don't watch short-form content myself because it makes me miserable and ruins my dopamine levels, how can it possibly be ethical for me to flood the market with it? They chose to protect the societal norm over a quick bump in engagement.
And that brings us right to our final thought today. The author Brian Klaas perfectly encapsulates this entire dynamic. We control nothing, but we influence everything. You cannot control the tech giants, and you sure can't force the person sitting next to you to look up from their screen. But your choices radiate outward. The simple, quiet act of pulling out a book instead of a phone might just be the exact behavioral contagion someone else needs to reclaim their own lost hour. Thank you so much for joining me as we unpack these sources for our explainer today. I really hope it gave you something incredible to think about. So, what will you influence today?